Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to put a question to the Honourable Member. The legislation is so broadly drafted that it doesn't differentiate between those who would smuggle humans for humanitarian reasons and those that would do it for profit. Also, it doesn't differentiate between those who smuggle people and land them in Canada and the individuals smuggled are determined to have been genuine refugees and those that are strictly economic migrants. Would he not agree that there should be a different approach for these various categories between the people, and would the government be amenable to see amendments to the legislation that would differentiate between those who are involved with human smuggling of genuine refugees and those that are strictly just economic migrants?
The Honourable Member for Edmonton St. Albert.
I do not agree, Mr. Speaker. Recently, there have been high-profile cases of human smuggling, and Canadians are rightly outraged by these incidents and are demanding action. The legislation is aimed at the smugglers. If individuals are legitimate refugees and are determined to be such by the Immigration Refugee Board, they will be dealt with according to law. But this legislation is aimed directly at the smugglers. We know too often that it is a profitable enterprise to smuggle people into Canada. With these measures and the increased fines and the added mandatory aspect of jail time, individuals will have to calculate that in their business plans before they decide that this is an appropriate venture to smuggle people into Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Oak Ridges Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask my honourable friend, I noticed that in section 3.2, it says a person who is convicted of an offence under subsection 3 with respect to a group of 50 persons or more is liable to a minimum punishment of imprisonment for a term of, in section B, 10 years if both the person in committing the offence endangered the life or safety of or caused bodily harm or death to any persons with respect to whom the offence was committed. The commission of the offence was for profit or was for the benefit of the direction of an association with a criminal organization or terrorist group. I wonder if you would agree with me that obviously this bill seeks to protect the individuals who are preyed upon by individuals for profit, simply to earn some money and take advantage of these people. If you would agree with me that this sends a very big message to anybody who would do something like this, that if you come to Canada, you are going to be treated very, very severely. Finally, the government of Canada is taking steps to go after these people who would profit on the backs of these poor individuals who are trying to come to this country.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton St. Albert.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the Honourable Member for his good question and for all the good work that he does on this file and others. Certainly, I would agree with his supposition, and similar to my response to the last question. This legislation is aimed directly at the human smugglers, those that are involved in this enterprise, individuals who own the boats that are used to operate these types of enterprise. There are many victims, and it's conceivable that the people who are actually being smuggled in under certain circumstances are victims, and this legislation allows the department to assess who are legitimate refugees and who are part of either a criminal enterprise or perhaps individuals who are trying to masquerade under the pretense of refugees to try to gain entry into Canada. But in any event, the Honourable Member is correct. This legislation will make it easier to prosecute human smugglers and will impose mandatory prison sentences for those convicted of human smuggling. That is the target of this Act, and I think it is very much needed in timely legislation.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Mississauga South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do find the discussion very interesting. Obviously, there is some concern about the time frame in which it takes to process persons. The member will know that the persons coming on the boats would not expose themselves to that kind of situation unless they were and believed that they were in dire straits and were legitimate refugee claimants. The concern that I have is that the time frames seem to be inordinate, where it could be that children could be in detention for long periods in excess of a year, and then every 6 months thereafter. The member is well aware, I'm sure, that with regard to a number of countries from which people have come, that documents either don't exist or are refused, and this may be in fact the case significantly. We're changing this law not simply because of the Tamil Sub situation. It will apply to all countries, and the member must be well aware. Is he at all concerned that the children may be the victims of some unintended consequences?
The honourable member for Edmonton St. Albert.
Well, yes, of course, we should all be very concerned and sympathetic when children are being smuggled. And I mean, this legislation again takes direct aim at those who would be involved in smuggling. There's often an overlap between human smuggling and trafficking in individuals, and we all know those horror stories where individuals end up in the sex industry. I don't actually agree with the premise, though, of his question. And I don't think that refugee claimants or the people on the boats can be characterized as one category. He indicated that he didn't think that people would put themselves in that position unless they believed themselves to be legitimate refugees. And I don't, although that's certainly true in some circumstances, I don't think that is universally true. We've heard anecdotally and otherwise that individuals paid large sums of money to board these ships. So those individuals who had access to those types of resources, immediately one becomes suspicious as to how bad their plight might have been if they were able to pay amounts. The figure that I've heard is up to $50,000. So some individuals were perhaps not as bad off as others. But I think the point is that individuals have to be individually assessed, and some are legitimate refugee claimants, and some are queue jumpers who are trying to enter our country, our great country, without going through the normal process. And by having them detained for the appropriate period of time, it will allow the appropriate officials at immigration to determine who is legally admissible as a refugee, who is not. And we have to send out the message both to potential refugee claimants and particularly to those who smuggle them that Canada will not tolerate this type of activity. Thank you.
Questions and comments?